Hey everyone, and welcome to Big Red Homestead. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today we got Nebraska's first home game of the year, Matt Rhule's first home game of his career, and a really interesting one in a night game at Memorial Stadium. I mean, after watching the film, there's gonna be some interesting X factors in this game I'm looking forward to talking about, and there's a lot to go through today. Predictions, previews, X factors, everything in between. Caleb, how you doing?
Man, I'm great. The season starts today. Obviously, away games before you have a home game against a non-Power 5 school do not count. So we're 0-0, and no other school in any Power 5 has played 2 away games already in the first 2 weeks.
And 2 Power 5 teams, yeah, right?
Yeah, it was nothing but a bad cumulative dream for everybody.
I mean, good morning, Husker Nation. Welcome to the season. So with that said, I mean, obviously we're playing against Northern Illinois this weekend. They're in the MAC. There's been some bad omens of Northern Illinois Memorial Stadium in past seasons, but that has nothing to do with this game. So heading into the game right now, the spread's at about 10.5 or 11.5 favoring Nebraska, depending on what site you look on. It opened at 13, so it's actually been bet down a little bit. The over-under is at 43 right now, so pretty low scoring cumulative total game right now. PFF has Nebraska power ranked at 83rd, woo, and Northern Illinois at 129th, so you love to see that. When you look at this Northern Illinois offense, what are your first thoughts? What comes to mind? Where are you at with this Northern Illinois offense?
I mean, Rocky Lombardi, it's fun that he's going to be in Memorial Stadium yet again.
What a return.
It's a 7th-year senior, a guy that, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. It's going to be fun to see Rocky Lombardi.
7th year. He played in Lincoln in 2018.
I was in college. It was a great time.
It was the Michigan State barn burner, 9-6 win in the snow on senior day. There were no touchdowns in the game.
With a backup kicker.
It was disgusting. So let's hope it's not that game because nobody wants to see that ever again. So
no, but that was against Michigan State. So you felt a little bit better about it, right? In the snow. And yeah, that was fun. That was actually really fun getting the win there. One of the few good memories of wins.
I mean, right now this season, Rocky is at 54.5% completion percentage, 462 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks. The turnover prone so far. Right now, Northern Illinois has an interesting, basically, situation here. They're 1-1 on the year with a win against Boston College and a loss against Southern Illinois. So quite the start to the season for Northern Illinois on the road, heading on the road here. So we'll talk a lot about both those games in this and the differences in their performances. But I mean, like against Southern Illinois, he was sacked 5 times, Rocky. But against Boston College, he was only sacked once. And you could tell in the differences in those games about the turnovers that he made regarding pressure. We'll talk more about that in the X factors because it's extremely interesting to say the least.
There's a reason he's no longer in the Big Ten, and that is the turnovers for the guy. But sometimes, he could really, with time, make good throws. As we were watching the games, it was, that was really nice. And then just out of nowhere, there would be also some really big inaccuracies. And I don't think 3 turnovers shows how many bad throws that he had also made during those games. Some of them were very dangerous. So the pressure is going to be, that'll be important as this game moves along for him. Because again, he has a big arm where he can make some throws. And there was some good contested catches as well by some of the wide receivers. Yeah, Kasper Ruckowitz, he had 11 receptions and he's at 185 yards and a touchdown. He's a 5th-year senior. He's their highest graded player on PFF through 2 games. He has a 78.3. And he looked really good. There was a couple of really nice catches that he had in that Boston College game for good first downs. And he's averaging 16.8 yards per catch. So he's a guy to look out for because, again, Rocky, when throwing well, he put the ball in some nice spots, and he's caught some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Rocky's definitely a very hit or miss, hot or cold type of quarterback, to say the least. What do you think about their running backs? They feel like they've had a hit or miss running game so far.
Yeah, again, some familiar names, but Ontario Brown and Gavin Williams, it's a solid running back duo for a MAC school. Last year, they'd been productive. Ontario Brown's been productive. He's had 536 yards. It's almost 700 yards. And that's at 6.6 yards per carry. Both years, he's had 12 touchdowns. And he's looked pretty solid. But he only averaged 2.9 yards per carry for this last year. So not nearly as effective.
You mean like so far this season?
Yeah, exactly. So far this season, which is exciting for us as Nebraska fans. Obviously, we've been holding all rush teams in our 2 games we've played for under 2 yards a carry. So seeing that he's been half as effective this year is a good sign. If not about him, then their offensive line. So, and then Gavin Williams, he's had 17 carries for 71 yards. That was only 4.2 yard average. So,
yeah, and if you recognize the name Gavin Williams, it's because he came from Iowa and he was there for years. So we've played against them a lot. He's very familiar playing in Memorial Stadium and, against Nebraska specifically. So it is interesting because like their offense has, Gavin Williams plus Rocky Lombardi, 2 former Big Ten guys who played against Nebraska before. So, there are some of these recipes where you're like, okay, they're not going to be as rattled as most MAC teams come in, especially on the offensive side, at least when it comes to their performance in Memorial Stadium. The offense is really interesting, and we can definitely talk about this for a second, about how they format their offense and things they try to do. They're really creative, and they have a lot of different formations. They bring a lot of looks. You see some of the classic shotgun in their offense, but you also see a lot of variants. Like you'll see they run wishbone sometimes, like a variant wishbone formation. They have a fullback in the backfield, the running backs out as wingers, and they get really creative running some like triple option and things like that. They run some wildcat as well. And they'll run out of pistol. And so they really get creative with their offense. And not only that, but they implement a lot of bubble screens and quick passes, timing routes and things like that to get Rocky into rhythm. And so, especially against Boston College, I thought they game planned really well there and felt really prepared. But in Southern Illinois, it looked a lot more disconjointed and less prepared. So that's the question for me, is what team are we going to get? It's hard to know. I mean, they literally look like 2 completely different teams in week 1 and week 2 against way different opponents too. So it's really hard to tell.
I mean, maybe they were looking ahead after, beating Boston College. They're like, oh, we can look ahead to Nebraska. And, they kind of just, they slept on a Southern Illinois. But yeah, I agree. They do a lot of creative things because they are, an undersized MAC team, and they did a lot of good stuff. Yeah, get into those edges again, knowing that they couldn't trust in that Boston College game their offensive line. They did a lot of quick things to make that offense go. And Rocky, he does have some legs as well. He can get out and run. And so that will be a factor for us. It's always the quarterbacks that they're not dual threat.
The sneaky ones.
Just enough. They got just enough athleticism to pay for it. So yes, exactly. Like an Ethan Kaliak-Mannix. That's something that I think our team will continue to get better at, but something that, again, with Ethan, like something we weren't quite disciplined on in keeping him, in the backfield. Both games when the play kind of broke down, it was hard for us to get to the quarterback. Both Shedeur and Ethan got big first downs with their legs, and something that we can continue to snuff out and be good at as a team. I'll be excited to see us improve in that zone.
It's hard to tell exactly what the strengths of this offense are because they looked completely different in both games. Where like in the first game, it was the throwing ability and a balanced offense. They ran the ball actually pretty well against Boston College as well. And so they looked like a really solid offense. You go watch Southern Illinois and it was complete garbage and they looked horrible.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why I'm really interested to see what type of offense we get, but I like the trickery and I like the balance. Yeah, the turnovers were obviously the difference, and that came from Rocky forcing the ball. So we'll see what happens. So on the defensive side, they're pretty basic, straightforward defense. They run a lot of 4-3 and a lot of nickel, and so basically they run nickel on like second and long in those long distance situations. Besides that, they run pretty much base 4-3. And I like how deceptive they were. They had some nice plays in this game, and their secondary made some nice plays as well.
Yeah, they were pretty good about bringing pressure in both games as well. They're aggressive. They had 15 pressures on Southern Illinois. Sounds like our game last week if you just look at the defensive side, especially on the pressure. They had 15 pressures and 6 sacks. And, you look at that and you're like, oh, that's pretty solid. And then against Boston College as well, they had 13 pressures, a sack, and 2 QB hits. So they're able to generate some pressure, and they are aggressive in that. So I'm looking for Nebraska to exploit some of that pressure and, again, being able to recognize it on those key third down situations, get the ball out fast, and then make them pay for it. And again, having our offensive line, I'm looking at you, Turner. Time to step up in that pass pro on those third and longs, and Yeah, it's time. One of these days, he's gonna wake up feeling dangerous and start pass pro.
Yeah, we all know you don't believe that. Come on now. At the same time, though, it's like what's crazy is like Southern Illinois was 1-11 on third down in that game. 1-11 on third down in that game.
That's really good.
And Southern Illinois won the game. It's like, how does that even happen? That is so
turnovers.
Tough. And it was turnovers, but like,
what do you know? It sounds so familiar.
To the club.
It sounds like a dark time. I feel bad for those. Is there a Northern Illinois fan? I'm sure there is somewhere.
Yeah, the Huskies. Fun fact
I hope you enjoy our video. Welcome into the channel. I'm excited. Yeah. If you're a Husky fan, leave a little wolf emoji.
Here's the trivia for you. What is Southern Illinois' mascot?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
It's a bird, isn't it? Nope.
It is. It is a dog. It is not just a husky though, because the Huskies is boring and basic. It's the Salukis.
Oh, the Salukis.
The Salukis. I was like, dang, that's cool. I was like, that's a pretty sick name. So I just thought it'd be fun to throw it out there. But regardless,
thank you.
One thing I thought was
their mascot name.
Yeah. What? One thing I thought was interesting was Boston College though ended up having a lot of success. Yes, this defense is effective. So like their front seven's actually quite respectable, especially their defensive line. I mean, Matt Rhule's mentioned this over and over and over in these press conferences. Like, oh, their defensive line. I mean, he likes talking up teams like Northern Illinois. Boston College's quarterback is like really athletic and made a lot of big time plays. Castanelos. And
yeah, he looked good.
He looked good for sure. And actually, Boston College is having a pretty crazy season too. They lost to Northern Illinois, and then they barely beat Holy Cross 31-28, and then they get to play Florida State this week. So have fun, Boston College.
Poor guys.
Like, there is opportunity in this game for downfield throws. There's opportunity for QB draws. I mean, in the second half, Boston College finally figured out, wait a second, QB draws are working, and they started putting up points and nearly brought the game back to winning because they were down pretty big for a while there. And so,
yeah,
I think Nebraska's offense is going to have opportunities to open this game up, and running the ball should be interesting. I mean, overall, Northern Illinois has done a good job of containing the opposing running games. I mean, Southern Illinois had about 2.7 yards per carry in their game, and then against Boston College, it was still pretty respectable as well. I think it was like at 5 or so, but that was with like 1 or 2 big runs that ripped off. So with that said, I think we can kind of head into the X factors and talk about how this is actually going to happen and what Nebraska can do to dominate in a game like this. And I think it's obvious you got to start off here talking about Rocky Lombardi. And it was fun looking into him because he definitely has some very distinct strengths and weaknesses, especially regarding pressure. So when under pressure, he is currently the 3rd lowest graded quarterback in college football. Out of 122 qualified QBs, 3rd lowest graded while under pressure. But what's interesting is that he's actually 24th best when blitzed, but 3rd worst when under pressure. So
yeah, so we got to be hitting on those blitzes.
Essentially, it really wasn't about
get to him.
Yeah, to him, it wasn't about whether he was blitzed or whether he wasn't. It was whether he had pressure or whether he wasn't. It was about whether or not he had time to throw the ball. Basically, when a guy was open, he hit him. But when guys weren't open and he didn't have time to look through his progressions, he was making a ton of mistakes. Had a bunch of turnover-worthy plays. I think he has 5 turnover-worthy plays on the season so far. The strength of our defense is the secondary, and we saw this against Shedeur. Shedeur had time where he had to scramble and extend the play. Just had to find somebody. And most of the time, there was still no one. So this is where I get really excited about opportunities in this game, is because there's a world where this secondary locks down all of their receiving core options, considering they basically only have one solid guy who seems to get open on his own. And suddenly Rocky starts forcing the ball, and then we have a turnover bonanza. And if that's the case, that's where that's where you get pumped.
Both teams we've played have had a solid wide receiver core top to bottom. And Northern Illinois does not have a top to bottom. And quarterbacks
take care of the ball.
Yeah, we have not seen a top to bottom. Exactly. So this is a really fun place for our defense. And that's my X factor is it's time for our defense to get takeaways. We've had one this season. I think that's where we have been lacking. I think our defense can take another step up if we can make Rocky get these turnovers, which I believe we will. But that's the biggest X factor is, we're going to get pressure. We're going to continue. We lead the nation in sacks. So, that's something positive. And I think it's time that we turn that into turnovers. And I think we do. They've brought it for 2 games, but they had a rough second half because of the difficulty, again, in Colorado, in the high elevation. They played a lot of snaps. So I think it's time for them to get right after that. And I think they have a lot to play for and a lot to be motivated for, especially, again, in the sack department. So I'm looking for him to not keep that pocket clean for Rocky Lombardi, because, yeah, he's 42nd ranked when the pocket's kept clean. And I expect it to not be very clean at any point of this game. I can't wait for Tony White to send tons of different stuff. Nebraska's defense last week against Colorado got in the most trouble when we only sent 3 guys and our defensive line couldn't get any sort of pressure. I think we need to send more than 3 guys 99% of the game.
Yeah, to be fair, though, there were a lot of moments last game where when we were playing like that, we were playing like cover 3 because we're just trying to keep the game in front of us against Shedeur. So I don't expect that at all in a game against Rocky Lombardi and this offense. I mean, right now, they don't really have a strong identity. It seems like they want to run the ball, but they often can't.
Once we get those 3 and 16, 17s, though, I'd rather send 4 than send 3, because that was a problem for us, again, when we only sent 3 on some of those really long situations. So
I mean, it's hard for any team when you're sending 3 to get pressure. That's usually not the goal. Rocky, without a doubt, will force some passes in this game. So I think the next key for me then is on the defensive side when it comes to being disciplined, because Northern Illinois is going to be pulling out all the stops in this game, without a doubt. I mean, they have a variety of formations. Again, they love running end arounds. They love using that wishbone to try to get outside. And then they run these quick bubble screens to get to the outside from shotgun. And they run a lot of sweeps.
Yeah, trick passes.
And they threw a trick pass for a 2-point conversion in one of the games. And so I think it's going to be really, really important to stay disciplined and play your boundaries, play your side of the field.
Do your job.
Because like on the offensive side, they really like throwing these like little quick timing throws, like these West Coast offense timing throws. And like I said, the bubble screens in space. And so tackling in open field will be important. They're going to try to attack those types of weaknesses for us, where towards the edge, right off the edge of the tackle, and trying to attack our outside linebackers. And so our defense has done a good job of that so far. And I see us having a lot of success there when it comes to controlling the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I agree. We got to respect our opponent, come in prepared and take that opportunity. Again, I don't want to see us overlook any team or play less than 100% because of the opponent changes. After any emotional high of playing like a Colorado or a Michigan where the stakes feel really high, and then coming into a at-home night game, it's comfortable. I hope that we continue to be who we are as a team, and especially as a defense. That would be a good look for me and Rhule, and that's kind of another key for me.
My final X factor on the offensive side then, essentially, well, right now, which we can talk about here in a second, it looks like Heinrich Haarberg is going to start the game for Nebraska. Jeff Sims is practicing again, so it's up in the air right now. It looks like it's going to be a game time decision. And Rhule at this point has said if Sims is healthy, he'll play. But they've been very uncommittal about who's going to start in this game. Or if I had to bet my money right now, I think it's going to be Heinrich, just to not risk further injury to Jeff, and because I think deep down the coaches want to see what Heinrich has going for him. And so when it comes to that, I think overall you have to find ways to make the game easy for Heinrich, get him into the groove. And first of all, I think that starts with getting Billy Kemp in open space. I mean, we saw it right at the beginning of the game against Colorado. When he has the ball in his hands, he's dangerous. So let's find ways to get the ball in his hands easily. Screen passes, timing routes to Billy Kemp. You know, Heinrich's still dangerous with the ball in his hands as well. He's a big dude. And so I'm down to draw up some of these QB draws, basically replicate the success that Boston College had in the second half last week, or in week 1, and wear them down a little bit heading into like the fourth quarter, where I think we can, in the second half at least, really take advantage of our running game. And that's where I think Gabe Ervin starts finding a groove.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the two-headed running back monster that is Heinrich Haarberg and Gabe Ervin will be a lot for Northern Illinois to handle. And yeah, we need those timing routes, those quick comeback routes. I agree, finding space for Billy Kemp and getting them comfortable. I thought Marcus Satterfield did this once after a Jeff Sims turnover. It was just a nice, quick Billy Kemp throw. And I was kind of looking for more of that to get them in the groove instead of 1 or 2 comfort throws, in a series. Like, let's build in a couple of them, especially with Haarberg. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he has too. Let's test his arm. I want to see those shots. And granted, we haven't taken a lot of shots. Part of it has been that we've just gotten pressure. Matt Rhule said that, they have drawn up more of those shots, but they just kind of, the plays broke down. I want to see what Heinrich Haarberg has. 10, 15, 20 yard throws, sideline throws. I'm sure they will test it out as this game gets more comfortable. I expect a lot of run to start the game, but we got to keep drives going. One touchdown a game is just never going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it, as everybody knows. And so Marcus Satterfield, it's on him and his staff to find ways for us to put ball in end zone. And I think
the good
news is our defense might do that for us.
With that said, I want to hear your predictions. Will ball be in end zone? How many points we score in this game? Where are you at? What's your official prediction for Nebraska versus Northern Illinois? Do you think Heinrich's starting?
I think Heinrich's starting, but I do agree. I think the coaching staff, if Jeff Sims was fully healthy, they're rolling him out. It's clear Matt Rhule said in the press conference, he's our quarterback. So Heinrich Haarberg has a real opportunity this game to show off some of his skill set and maybe make the coaches question if Sims keeps turning the ball over. Hey, we have a dude over here that's a backup that's ready to take this opportunity. I think that Nebraska's defense is the key to this game, though. They have been good, really good at times, but I think this game they're going to establish that we can win games just with them. They're going to put on that black shirt legacy of, hey, we're a good enough defense where you can win games just by having us on one side of the ball. And I'm excited to see them. I think that they get some points this game. That if nothing else, they're going to have a good amount of yards on some picks, on some fumbles. I'm excited to see the defense unleashed week 3. Again, they're the bright spot. They're the fun part to watch when they're on the field. So I'm excited to see our defense dominate this game. So I think that we're going to eventually pull the starters. So we're going to win 31-3. Our starting defense is going to hold them to 0 points. So I think that the offense is going to get around 20, 21. And that our defense is going to help us get around 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's the narrative, right? For a blowout is 3 or 4 turnovers from Rocky. We take care of the ball. Basically, we have enough success on the ground where we don't really fumble, we don't really throw picks, and we win the turnover margin 3 or 4 nothing. And then suddenly
and a big Gabe Irvin play.
Yeah, suddenly this is a huge blowout. So that's the right narrative for sure. As for me, well, first of all, I want to say shout out May's text from the Discord.
Yes.
On his because each week we're going to shout out the previous most accurate prediction. He predicted Colorado to win 35-17. So shout out May's text from the Discord, and you can join the Discord down in the link in the description if you want to hang out with us during the games or anytime during the week and have some good convos about football. But with that said, I mean, I agree. Nebraska's in a pretty good spot for this game. Obviously, my biggest worries with Haarberg and its offense and whether or not we're going to have enough rhythm to put up points. Your narrative is that the defense is going to give us those opportunities. I think that's also going to happen, but I see the offense struggling even more than what you do probably. I mean, it's been a pretty safe bet to take unders for Nebraska in recent times, especially when it comes to points on Nebraska's side in games like this. With the over-under being at 43 right now and Nebraska being 10.5 point favorites, I'm going to pick Nebraska and the points, but I'm going to take Nebraska 24-10 in a kind of ugly, not a totally optimistic game, like one that's going to be a little bit kind of ugly and hard to watch.
How scary is this 24-10? How scary is it? Like,
it's not that scary. Like, no, okay. I think we'll be in pretty much in control most of the game. And I agree, the defense is going to do a great job and keep this offense really at bay. So it's just going to be a pretty slow game where we feel like we should be doing more offensively than we are. And the running game doesn't really click into gear until later in the game, and we're not going to find the points as often as we'd like to. And we'll probably have a turnover or two, just because it's going to happen at this point. Like you said, at the end of the day, the X factor is the pressure against Rocky Lombardi. We could force 4 turnovers in this game easily, and in that world, then suddenly we're talking about a 20 plus point wins. So I'm taking a pretty conservative game overall versus some of the other Nebraska fans' picks so far.
Yeah, I'm definitely picking the under, but I think it's just because our defense plays a great game. And yeah, I agree with you. Our offense is just going to look lethargic, very slow, not pretty. but the defense is going to put us in good spots early for us to, you know, at least feel safe. And then, yeah, eventually Gabe Irving and then Heinrich Harburg. I think we're going to get some nice runs. And I think, yeah, some fun end around stuff. Get a lot of the guys involved. I could see like a Jalen Lloyd.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, and that was actually
sweep.
one thing that Rhule mentioned was he specifically mentioned Jalen and Malachi as being involved a lot more this week. And so I think we're going to see some of that for sure. And it was interesting. I think some of his other comments in these press conferences was about how he wants to see more of the freshmen involved even more. Like Riley Van Poppel, who got a sack in the Colorado game. He says he's not a 4-game guy for us. And he also said the same thing about Boodle. Boodle's not a 4-game guy for them, which is interesting. You'd think that they try to find those guys red shirts this season, but apparently not. Wild stuff from them. So drop your comments down below. We want to see what you guys have to say. And again, support us on Patreon and join the Discord. We really appreciate you guys. And it means a ton seeing you guys hanging out. And of course, the patrons. We posted the film breakdown of this game on Patreon. And we post MP3s of every single game, every single video. So you can listen to them on Spotify if you have the Patreon. And a lot more, obviously. We do PFF grade reviews and a bunch over there. And so we have Caleb's blog post coming up, which is going to be fun as well. So be on the lookout for that. But as always, guys, appreciate you guys. And as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Big Red Homestead. And guys, we'll see you next time.
Go Big Red.